Hey everyone, it's Lisa. I am actually going to be talking about Margaret Sanger today. Um, there was such a long list of nurses that I think have made an impact on, the nursing world, the healthcare world in general. But the one person that really stuck out to me was Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was considered an early feminist and a women's rights activist. She actually was the one that coined the term birth control. Um, Margaret Sanger was born in 1879 in New York to a very, very large family. She was actually one of 11 children, was raised in a Roman Catholic working class family. Um, Margaret's mother actually passed away at the age of 40, which is pretty crazy that she had 11 children before the age of 40. But they say that one of the reasons why she passed away at such a young age is because of her several miscarriages and the amount of pregnancies that she had back in the 1800s. There wasn't really prenatal care or any real major health care for women. So having 11 pregnancies really took a toll on her body. Margaret and her siblings were left to be taken care of by her father, which did not go over well because he began drinking and decided that talking about politics was more important than taking care of his family. Margaret wanted a better life for herself, so she attended college, and then 4 years after that, she decided she wanted to pursue a career in nursing, so she started working at White Plains Hospital. Here, she started working, really focusing on women's rights, and around that time met her husband, and they ended up having 3 children of their own. They decided to move to Greenwich Village, and that area, that neighborhood, was really known for their radical politics. So this was not going to go very well for her because radical politics and women's rights at that time was not a good mesh. Margaret is considered the sex education pioneer. She actually wrote a book called What Every Girl Should Know. She decided to work in an area in a hospital on the Low East Side. And this area was very populated with poor immigrants. So she saw a lot of women coming through that were not taking care of themselves, in the fact that they were having abortions in back alleys. They were trying to self-abort their children, and she was just disgusted by how women were being treated for their health. She, after seeing all these women, she decided, there has to be some fix. So she started brainstorming and started thinking there has to be this magic pill that can help control pregnancy. She was very big on it's a woman's right if she wants to be pregnant or not. She actually has a quote that I do not have memorized, so I'm going to read it to you. But her quote was, "No woman can call herself free until she can choose consciously whether she will or will not be a mother." This was something very big back in her time because, women were looked at to be mothers. That's what they were supposed to be. So the fact that, she wanted this magic pill to control if they were going to be a mother did not sit well with people. In 1914, she started a publication called The Woman Rebel. This promoted women's rights through a magazine. So this was all printed information about contraception. And this magazine got her in lots of trouble. It actually went against the Comstock Act of 1873, which prohibited any sort of obscene materials, which I think is funny that they considered birth control as an obscene material. So she was actually sentenced to 5 years in jail and did not want to serve that time, so she fled to England. While she was in England, she started researching other forms of contraception, which included diaphragms. So when she actually got to go back to the United States, she smuggled diaphragms back with her. She returned to the United States in 1915 when all of her charges had been dropped. A year later, her sister, Ethel, and her decided to open the first birth control clinic. And 9 days after they opened, their clinic was shut down, and they were arrested and put in jail for 30 days because they went against that Comstock Act. Because they were providing birth control and options for women, which was obscene materials. So she, did her 30 days in jail, got back out of jail, and decided to continue her journey for women's rights. In 1923, she was able to open her first legal birth control clinic in the United States. After this, she sort of stepped out of the spotlight and moved to Arizona, was going to retire, but that didn't last long. So she decided she was going to help set up the International Planned Parenthood Federation in 1952. We all know the name Planned Parenthood, and we all know it's, based for women who need birth control or advice about pregnancy and whatnot. During this time, she was still very interested in that magic pill. So she looked for some help from people, and they actually invented the first oral contraceptive, which was called Inovid, which was approved by the FDA in 1965. So that's a big deal. Finally, FDA approved a pill, her magic pill. And in 1966, she was able to live to see her hard work get approved by the Supreme Court. In 1965, Griswold versus Connecticut approved birth control. So it was legal, and she was able to see it. Unfortunately, a year later in 1966, she passed away in Arizona. But it's really neat to read that her name still lives on. There are lots of women's health clinics across the nation that have, her name incorporated in it. So you can know, it's a remembrance that, she worked really hard for women's rights and it paid off. Obviously she's a leader. I don't know how you can't be a leader by, putting others before yourself. This woman was, arrested for 30 days, put in jail for 30 days. She had to flee to England because what she believed in was so strong and she wasn't going to give up. It's pretty amazing to see all these women, that, paved the way for nursing, and what leaders they were. They didn't care what was going to happen to them. They wanted what was right for their patients. And that's nothing but a leader. The impact, where would healthcare be without birth control for women? It's pretty crazy to think that there was a time that there wasn't birth control for women, that there wasn't a time where women had a choice, in their health. I think also she impacted the nursing community because other women saw how much she believed in something and it made them want to do something for the community. Or, it wasn't always just women's rights, it was other people helping wounded warriors. And, it opened the door for all sorts of, patient advocacy. That's what she was doing. She was a patient advocate. She didn't want to see her patients going out to back alleys and getting, abortions by someone they didn't know in an unhealthy condition. So patient advocate, is her main concern. That's her impact. I would say our similarity is, women's health is something that's very important to me. I think everything from, birth control to self breast exams to health and wellness, to pregnancy, to everything about a woman is important and it's interesting to me. I I agree with what she said. It's a woman's right to for her to choose if she wants to be a mother or not. And birth control or, any sort of contraception is a way to control that. If you're not ready, keep on taking it. If you're ready to be a mom, then stop taking it. I think I agree with her on that full heartedly. It's their right to choose when they're ready. I would say the least like, I'm probably the least like her in the fact that if I would have gotten arrested and put in jail for 30 days, I don't know if I would have continued with what I believed in. I would like to say I would and that I would be brave enough to do it, but I don't know if I would have, especially back in her time. Women didn't really have a voice and she was making that voice. And, I would hope that I would have been like that, but I don't know. I don't know if I would have. Nowadays, women do have a voice and can say how they feel, but back in the day they weren't. So it's probably how I'm not like her is that she didn't care what anyone said and went on with how she felt. How I want to make an impact as a nurse is, I want to become a nurse practitioner. I want to focus on women's health. I want to be a provider that my patients trust, they believe in. I want patients to leave after they've seen me and feel like they've learned something, that they, are confident in their health and how they can take care of themselves. I really am all about education and being a patient advocate. So I really hope I can impact the world in that way and really teach patients how to take better care of themselves. So that is all I have, and I hope you all have a great night. Thanks.